great show you guys have just done about, you start off with wine, you've taken it to the next level, next depth, I would say, peeling back the onion, as it were, and talked about values there. When it comes to values, we hear a lot about it. We hear them splattered everywhere. Customer service, we're honest, we've got integrity. But do you find sometimes when you start to talk to business owners, they're not quite sure what they really mean by that?
No, and the concern for me is if you are not honest or ethical, that's a concern. You need to go a little bit deeper than that.
Especially when it's on the lawyer's office.
Yes.
And the accountant says we're trustworthy. What you have a problem?
Exactly. So when people, you need to go much deeper, and we spoke about it earlier in the shows as well, as you do have to go vertical. We are so used to just go horizontal. We need to dig a little bit deeper for that gold in your business.
So when you work with people, Kathleen, when you work with someone, is it difficult for people to really succinctly say what they mean by their value? They kind of might know it inside, but to externalise it so other people get it, is that a challenge for people to write it out?
It is a challenge, and it often does begin with the more generic things like, I value honesty, I value integrity, I value punctuality, and all of those things are important. But as I say, that as you're saying, that's kind of a base, like that's a minimum base. We want to know that we're dealing with punctual and honest people. It's not what's going to really differentiate you from another business. And so when you start to get deeper, it firstly becomes challenging. Often people sort of want to have a break or sort of just want to give up and sort of, can we do this at another session? Because it's hard work. But once you really start to get down to what's truly important to you and why it's important to you, one of the things that will often happen is a person will be able to relate it to some sort of childhood experience or some sort of really significant event in their life where they'll go, well, that's really important to me because... and also it often leads to that breakthrough of that moment of, I didn't realise all along that's really my passion and that's why that's important to me. So often your sort of core value or value that's really at a high level, that is related to the other things and it's congruent with the other things like the honesty, but it's a lot deeper than that, and that's what your customer's going to relate to. That's your why.
And do you find, Gerhard, when you can succinctly get your value, that then you're better able to educate your staff exactly what you mean? Because is it easy to misinterpret what someone might mean by when they just say a value?
Assumptions. People assume that this is your value, and you need to communicate that. For example, for me, the one thing that's very strong is fairness. If we in business and it's not fair, then we can't do business. So I would always say no to business because that doesn't feel right to me. But because people know it, if I tell people one of my core values is fairness, there's a different relationship.
How do you so as your company grows and your business grows, you took on an employee and you said we believe in fairness. How do you explain to someone what you mean by that?
I think that the best way to explain it is, let's say, for example, something happens at reception, and they made a decision to say, you know what, I will bill you today. We will not charge you the private billing, and this is the reason why. And the patient walks out happy, And you go up to your employee and say, you know what, that was fair. I think what you've done here was great. So you enforce your why and your value to your employee.
So listening to what Gerhard was saying there, Kathleen, your value almost allows your employees to make decisions on your behalf with the confidence of your backing.
Absolutely, and that's where understanding companies' values is a very important part of education, because what it means then is you're not following a script, you're not following, well, this is the company policy. What you're doing is you're problem solving. So if we value, as a medical practice, we value people's time. Sometimes we run late. It's inevitable, but we never make the assumption that that's okay, that's just what medical practices do. And staff know that. So if we're running late, it may be a case of a receptionist feeling empowered to say, you know, Kathleen is running late, but we understand your time is valuable, and for that reason, we'll bulk bill your consultation today just because we understand your time is money and that's important and valuable to you. So a lot of that, I think, happens through modelling the behaviour yourself.
Yes.
And also training is ongoing. So although you want to have formal training sessions, it's also just discussing and demonstrating that behaviour and then letting your staff know that for them to follow your lead is acceptable. So,
But also to reinforce. If they do
Yes.
something,
yes.
say thank you. Reinforce it and
Yes.
say, this is our values and you've just demonstrated it today.
Yes.
Reinforce it.
So when someone makes a decision, this must be difficult. When they make a decision and they really truly believe they followed your why and they followed your values, but it wasn't a good decision. Is that not a good decision, just purely then because they haven't been trained or educated, or maybe not got the level of depth of experience of yourself? What do you do in those circumstances so you don't destroy the person who thought they were doing the right thing?
I think first of all is to ask them to explain why they've made a decision, so you can understand better. It's not to judge, but just that you understand, the thinking behind it, and then also, so next time if this happened, how would you handle this differently? So they come up with the idea. But if you're going to slam that person, his self-confidence, they will never make a decision again.
And I think just to come in, one of the most powerful things one of our business coaches said to us, and it's always stayed with me, is he said, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others through our observations of their actions. So, when you make a decision, you're justifying it because you know what your intention was.
Yes.
Your intention might not be visible to someone else. And I think it's finding out, I see the way you handled that. What was your intention? What was your thinking behind that? And once you understand that, it also probably gives you insight in what they were trying to achieve. And then you can discuss other ways in which they might be able to do that.
Now, I don't want to take over for the next show, but I can see where you're going with this. But we're getting why, we're getting purpose, we're getting values, and you mentioned it through your show. You give us a bit of a hint, but culture. And these are foundation stones when we hear people saying cultures. I mean, Ford Motor Company had a sign on the wall that said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Is these the foundation stones that people need to go through to get there?
100%. There was a salesperson working for a car company, top salesperson. And the opposition, said, come and work for us, we'll give you more money. And he went. And after 2 months, he came back. And I asked, but why are you back? He said, I could not fit into the culture of that company. So culture is so important. And also, I would say 98% of the cases where I went into companies, within the first 2 weeks, I realized who is a toxic person in a company. There's always a person that actually is responsible for the company culture. And if you get rid of that person, everything changed. Culture is so important in a company. But again, it's set by the CEO. It's set by the managers, not by the staff.
I was going to say who's responsible.
Always the top.
And there are these building blocks that have to be in place for that culture. But I think also probably one of the most important things we see is people are often very slow to fire, quick to hire.
Yes.
Have you got the qualification? Have you got a pulse? Can you start tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's a band-aid. And if you employ a person that may be very competent, may be qualified to do what you've hired them to do, but is not the right fit for the company culture, that can just be disastrous. So it's really about, when you're hiring, making sure that that person's values align, that they understand your why, and that they're going to be able to fit into the culture. Because often it's just a bad fit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the next show on culture. No, I'm giving it away. It's terrific. Thanks for staying back and having a chat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.